Are not my days few? Cease then and let me alone, that I may take comfort a little. Before I go whence, I shall not return, even to the land of darkness and the shadow of death. A land of darkness is darkness itself, and of the shadow of death without any order, where the light is as darkness. Now we're going to look at what he means with the light being as darkness. And turn around and sit back and look at it and say, I'm going even into this land of darkness, this shadow of death. Let's look at Psalm 23 and 1. Psalms 23 and 1. Give me a second. Then I hit the wrong thing. Psalm 23 and 1. Yahuwah is my shepherd, I shall not want. He make me to lie down in green pastures. He lead me beside the still waters. He restore my nephesh. He led me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. So let me look at something in Psalm 23 first. And let's look at the rod and the staff. We know what those things are, but let's just look at them. Because he say when he's going through all these things, this is what's going to comfort him. When we look at rod, we see Shebet. If it will come up for me, please. And it says a rod, a staff, a branch, an offshoot, a club, a scepter, a tribe. But then we look at it, as we already read in Isaiah 11, how he say a branch will come up out of the stem of Jesse. So we look at another instance of this word rod stemming to be a branch. So when we turn around and you look at it, this will comfort you in a time of trouble. You get you John chapter 14. About verse 26. Stop playing. We also look at the other word for staff is mishnah, which means support of every kind. So we just want to look at the comfort part before we look at the support of every kind. John 14:26. 25. These things have I spoken unto you, being yet present with you. But the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I said unto you. Shalom I leave with you, and my shalom I give unto you. Not as the world give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. You have heard now how I said unto you, I go away and come again unto you. If you love me, you would rejoice, because I said I go unto the Father, for the Father is greater than I. You sat back and you see what he sit back and these men say, don't be afraid. Even when you sit back and you look at Mashiach, he getting ready to go through the valley of the shadow of death, he has support. He had that rod of that staff leading him in, because he told the disciples, ought not the scriptures be fulfilled? He said, could I not call on my Father now and get 12 legion of angels? Ain't that what he said? I could get 12 legions of angels right now. As he's walking, you sit back and look at it, right? Shadow of death. They came and got him under the cloak of darkness. He said, even in darkness, in the shadow of death, your light is going to be there. And we're going to look at it in another instance. Most of y'all probably got the framework of what we talking about or what we're going to allude to. But when you turn around and you look at it, right, those who trust in, that's why Paul said we have a sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but Elohim that should raise from the dead. We see a similitude of that with Joseph when he was in the prison. He had a sentence of death in himself, but he didn't trust in himself. Eventually, Yahuwah rose him from the dead when he came up out of that pit, out of that hole. You can even see the same thing with Jeremiah. Let's look at that in Jeremiah 26. They had a sentence of death in him. He didn't trust in himself. He ended up coming up out of the prison. Jeremiah 26. That's why you sitting back looking at when that shadow of death and all the workers of iniquity and those are the wicked coming with the contempt and the ignominy. They're sitting there as the dishonor and the reproach and the despising you. Because remember, he said he was a man despised of the people. They sit back and they look at that. This is the shadow of death. When men speak evil of you, falsely for Yahushua's name's sake. When you cast into prisons, when you're beaten, when you're afflicted, when you kill. This is the shadow of death. If you don't trust in Elohim, you're going to trust in yourself. You're not coming out on the other side of that shadow. You're not coming out on the other side of that shadow. Jeremiah chapter 26, verse 12. Hello? Oh, thought that bell wrong. 26 and 11. Then the priest spake the priests and the prophets unto the princes and all the people, saying, This man is worthy to die, for he prophesied against this city, have you heard with your ears? Then spake Jeremiah unto all the princes and all the people, saying, Yahuwah have sent me to prophesy against this house and against this city, all the words that you have heard. Therefore now amend your ways and your doings, and obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, and Yahuwah will repent of him the evil that he pronounced against you. As for me, I'm in your hand. Do with me as seemed good unto you. But know ye for certain that if you put me to death, you surely bring innocent blood upon yourselves and upon this city, and upon the inhabitants thereof. For of a truth, you have sent me unto you to speak all of these words. Then said the princes and all the people unto the priests and to the prophets, This man is not worthy to die, for he hath spoken to us in the name of Yahuwah Elohim. Then rose up certain elders of the land and spake to the assembly of all the people, saying, Micaiah the Morshorite prophesied in the days of Hezekiah king of Yehuda, and spake unto all the people of Yehuda, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, Zion shall be plowed like a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountains of the houses high places of a forest. That's the same way, because I went a little too far on that one. When we turn around and you look at it, right, you look at Mashiach. He came and spoke against the place, told him the temple would be destroyed. They said this man say he would destroy the temple and build it up again in 3 days. They looking at him the same way Jay was looking at Jeremiah. This man done spoke against the temple. He done spoke against this place. We ought to kill him. We ought to kill him. And even in the midst where he's sitting back looking at these people were going to kill him, he didn't trust in himself. He said, if you do something to me, you surely brought blood on your hands. Innocent blood. See, there has to come a point when you sit back and you look at it, that sentence of death is on yourself. You don't trust in yourself. You trust in Elohim who raised from the dead. It's many instances of many men in his word going through that same process. When you look at Elijah the Tishbite, Jezebel said, I'm going to kill Elijah. And Elijah was so depressed he asked Yah to take his life. He had a sentence of death in himself. He didn't trust in himself. He trusted in Yahuwah. And therefore he kept on going. He was going through the same thing, ignominy and reproach, despising and contempt. But all these men sat back and look at the same thing that Yahushua looked at, that the rod and the staff is going to comfort me, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death. Though I got this darkness enveloping me on every side and on every corner, I know it's light in the midst of that darkness, because that light is the living Elohim. That's Yahushua. That's why he say, if they don't speak according to this word, because there's no light in them. Yahushua say that I'm light, that he say I'm the light of the world. He that believe in me will never walk in darkness. So when you look at, even though you going through this shadow of death, because you got a sentence of death in yourself, not to trust in yourself, but in Elohim who raised from the dead, then guess where your trust light at? Even in that darkness, you got light, because life is present with you. Let's look at Psalm 44 though. I got to get ready to wind him down. Psalm 44 and probably about verse 17. Psalm 44 and about verse 17. Make it 16. For the voice of him that reproach and blaspheme by reason of the enemy and avenger. All this has come upon us, yet we have not forgotten thee, neither have we dealt falsely in thy covenant. That's why y'all sit back and look at the voice of them that reproach and blaspheme. All that came because Satan came in the heart of Judas. Where do you think that came from? 18. Our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined from thy way. So you sit back and look at, even though all this stuff come upon you, that's why we were talking about earlier, you got to put on the armor of Elohim to battle. Hold this Psalm 44, get Romans 8 and 34. Romans 8 and 34. He say, who is he that condemned? Is it Mashiach that died? Yea, rather that is risen again? For he is even at the right hand of Elohim, who also make intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Mashiach? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long, and we are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor Malachim, nor principalities, nor powers, nor nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Yahushua HaMashiach, our master. See, you turn around and look at something, right? When you got a carnal mind, because see, this just coming to my mind, right? Because he say, by reason of the enemy and the avenger, all this has come upon us. Come back to Psalm 44. See, what was coming to my mind was this. Is that when the adversary is after attack, and this is going back to what we're talking about judging after the eyes. See, the adversary's whole job is to turn you away from the salvation of your soul. So when you look at the work that Hashatan did the day Mashiach was killed, he got into the hearts and minds of all the people that to make them believe that Yahushua was a liar and a blasphemer and a deceiver who was misleading the people. Hold on. Matthew 27. Just sit back and look at what they call him. Because then if the people sit back and believe that they are a deceiver, then they'll have no desire to receive any word from him, or to believe on his works, I should say. And since they won't believe on his word, then therefore guess what should happen? Matthew 27 and 62. And guess what happened? The people will perish. Because in him was the life, and the light was the light of men. If you don't believe on him, then how are you going to be saved? Now the next day that followed, the day of the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees came together under Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember that deceiver said while he was yet alive, after 3 days I will rise again. You see what they called? They called him a deceiver. Even in Matthew 26, when he said that you'll see me on the right hand of esteem, coming in the clouds of Shamahim and great esteem, they say, what more have we need? We hear is blasphemy. They say, he say, have you been deceived by him too? The whole thing the scribes and the Pharisees did when the wicked come, so come contentment in ignominy, is because they had to make this man, they despised him so much, they had to dishonor him and speak with contempt, that the people would look at him in the same aspect, so that therefore they would not believe his works nor his words. Therefore, when they would not believe his works and his word, then these people would be condemned to hell as they were. Because he said they already had bear witness, they were the children of those who killed the prophets. He said, how could they escape the damnation that was already dropped upon their head? Job 44. Psalm 44, 19. He said, thou hast sore broken us in the place of dragons and covered us with the shadow of death. He said, you broke us in the place of dragons. Well, let's see what the word dragon going to come up with us for. Broke us in the place of dragons. Let's see what we come up with. The word we have here is tanin, and it means dragon, serpent, or sea monster. Serpent, venomous snake. He said, you have sore broken us in the place of serpents and brought us in the shadow of death. Well, let's look at something that Mashiach said to these people in Luke chapter 23. The son I just referenced. Matthew 23. Let's just look at what he said to these people. Matthew chapter 23, verse 29. He said, your sword broke us in the place of serpents and brought the shadow of death on us. Well, we already done sat back and look at how he shined the counsel on the wicked. Because the wicked sat back to take counsel to slay him. But because he had light in him, because the word was in him and life was in him, he was able to walk through that shadow of death and not be consumed and die on the other end. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because ye build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous. And say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore you be witnesses unto yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, drop them in the place of serpents. Ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? How these men going to escape it? How they going to get around it? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify, and some of them you shall scourge in your synagogue and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon their rats, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Bacharias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Truly I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. He said, you dropped us in the place of dragons, they sure broke us. He said, you brought us in the shadow of death. And when we come through the midst of these serpents. That's why you sit back and look at what Paul said, I was in peril of false brethren. That's why he say, blessed are ye when men speak evil of you falsely for my name's sake. Because we might be broke right in the midst of devils. Right in the midst of serpents. Because they search back to show forth through their works that they are the children of the wicked one. 1 John 3 and 14. (3 and 11). For this is the message that you've heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. Wherefore slew he him, because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hate you. We know that we have passed from death unto life, because we love the brethren. He that loved not his brother abide in death. Whosoever hate his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer have eternal life abiding in him. That's why he sat back and told them people, how you going to escape the damnation of hell? Fill you up your measure. Because you the one who done brought me to this place of serpents, that the shadow of death might envelop me. We'll hold the rest of that shadow of death for another, because we got other places. We're not going to work it all in. Let's go to Matthew 27, though. You sit back and look at that venomous snake. Satan come to bite with death. That's what he do. He come to bite with death. So when we look at Matthew 27, right, and we look at about verse 45, or about verse 44, the thieves also which were crucified with him cast the same in his teeth. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Yahushua cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, that is to say, Elohim, Elohim, why hast thou forsaken me? So now we see a cloud enveloping him. And he is truly in the midst of the shadow of death. But even in the midst of that darkness, there's light, because he's the light of the world. Just like you've seen in the beginning in Genesis chapter 1. Let's sit back and look at it. We show you right there in the shadow of death and the light being in darkness in Genesis 1 and 1, like Job said. In the beginning, Elohim created the Shamahim and their rats. And the rats was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Ruach of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness, and Elohim called the light day, and the darkness night, and the evening and morning were the first day. He said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Because he sat back and looked at, even in the midst of death, just like in the beginning, darkness being upon the whole face of the deep. In him was light, and the light was the life of men. Because when you come out on the other side of that dark cloud, eternal life is there. Now, when Mashiach is enveloped on that cloud on the stake, he dies. But then he said, your visitation, he said, life and favor in thy visitation, preserve my Ruach. Colossians 1 and 12. Colossians 1 and 12, 1 and 12, 1 and 12. Giving thanks unto the Father, which have made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the Kadeshim in light, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son, whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins, who is the image of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of every creature. So we turn around and we look at something that as Mashiach was enveloped into that darkness, he translated him out of that darkness to where he was changed. Because they came to the grave and they said, he's not here, he's risen. Why you look for the living amongst the dead? Because he came out of that cloud alive. A lot of people are going to go through that cloud of affliction and that suffering, and that shadow of death is going to cover them. And they're not going to come out because they trust in themselves. They don't actually trust in Elohim. Because when you're going through that shadow of death, this is when the adversary is going to come at you on every cut and corner, because it's going to be of the serpent, of the adversary, who trying to take you through that in the first place. To try to kill you, to try to shake your faith, try to get you to blaspheme, try to get you to not believe. That's why anything you can do, get you to turn from the word, get you not to stand. Anything he can get you to do to get it off your square. That's what we sitting back looking at. The man say, man, the battle that we fight is not against flesh and blood. This is a spiritual war. That's why you can't look at this thing with the eyes of a man or the eyes of flesh. Because when you look at it in that fashion, you will make a grave error to your own destruction. So when we look at going through the valley of the shadow of death, when we look at going through the shadow of death period, you're going to need the comfort, the support. That's why he said the support. And then in the branch. So you look at it, I'm going to come, you say, thou art my comfort. Thou hast comforted me. So his word, his ruach, his spirit is what's going to comfort you. That he give you comfort in all tribulation. You know what I'm saying? We don't even sit back and look at that. Because this is why that man say, we had a hope in ourselves. Come back to 2 Corinthians chapter 1. And look at what Paul say. That's why he say that the scriptures were written aforetime for our learning, that through them we might have comfort and we might have hope. That stuff supposed to comfort you. That's why the word got to be in you. That you can be able to be comforted in no tribulation. But look at what Paul say right here in about verse 7. No. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1. He said, our hope of you is steadfast, knowing that you are partakers of the sufferings, so shall you be also of the consolation. For we were not brethren, let's look at verse 9. But we had a sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in Elohim, which raised the dead, who delivered us from so great a death, and doth deliver, in whom we trust, that he will yet deliver us. It's the same trust that Joseph had. Like we already been looking at, even in that verse 4, who comfort us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those that are in tribulation. See, we don't even sit back and look at that. That the comfort going to come from Elohim. When the comfort comes from Elohim, through these things, that's what's going to be able to keep you. So his staff, his rod is going to keep you in line with the word, his correction. And then he's going to support you. He's going to hold you up. We don't think about those things now, do we? No, we don't think about those things. We don't think about those things when we're going through that shadow of death. That shadow of death ain't easy to endure. Where you think Mashiach comfort came from? He said, I know you won't suffer your Kadesh one to see corruption, which is what I wanted to pair together with this particular topic, which I knew I wasn't going to be able to do. Because that's a whole nother thing. But that's where you'll sit back and look at your comfort going to come from. When you're going through that shadow of death, if you trust in Elohim and walk with him and let him be your stay and your support and stay in line with that rod that he might direct you and guide you in your path, you'll see the light on the other end of that darkness. That's why he said they would light even in darkness through that shadow of death. Because Mashiach will still be that light to guide you. Why you think he said he'd be a fire? Come over here to Isaiah chapter 4. Same thing he told him in the wilderness, right? How he directed him in the wilderness, right? Yeshayahu 4. Four and 5. He says, and Yahuwah will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies a cloud and a smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night, for upon all the esteem shall be a defense. And there shall be a tabernacle for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and a place of refuge, and for a covert from the storm and from rain. That's all about Mashiach being a light to you in the midst of all those troubles and sorrows, a shining of a flaming fire by night, for upon all the esteem shall be a defense. This is what protect us in that there when you're going through that. This is what he did for our forefathers when they were coming through the wilderness. That even in the shadow of death, they would fear no evil. It's the same thing when he sat back and he made it go dark upon all the dwelling places in Mizraim, but not on Goshen. He said, I got to make he said, as a dog wag his tongue, he said, I got to make a difference between the children of Mizraim and the children of Yasharal. That even in the midst of darkness, they would fear no evil, because light would be ever present with them. But to get through that cloud, you got to be able to get to that light. You got to be able to endure to get through that cloud. You got to trust in Yahuwah. But nevertheless, hallelujah for Yahusha and the word. We'll pick this stuff up, y'all.